Lyra Hale stepped through the shimmering archway into VRYLLK Interstellar Academy, her boots tapping lightly against the metal walkway. The corridors glowed in shifting blues and violet pulses, responding to the movement of thousands of students flowing between classes. Every species seemed to take up more space than she did, towering insectoids, translucent serpents, feathered avians whose wings brushed light panels. Yet the crowds parted the moment she walked through them. Whispers followed her like a shadow. Deathworlder. Human, dangerous. Why is she even allowed here? Lyra kept her gaze forward. Her shoulders stayed relaxed, her breathing steady. She had expected the stares, but the intensity of them still scraped at her nerves. She wasn't here to frighten anyone. She just wanted a quiet life, a chance to study xenobiology without becoming a spectacle. But the galaxy loved its stories about humans, unstable, violent, unpredictable creatures evolved on a world where everything tried to kill them. She wished she could correct them. She wished they'd stop looking at her like she might explode. A cluster of younger students scurried aside as she passed, their eyes wide. One of them whispered loudly, "My mother said humans can hear your heartbeat changing." Lyra exhaled. "Not unless I'm trying," she murmured, but they had already run off. She reached her next class, Comparative Planetary Threat Ecology. As she slipped into her seat, the instructor, an elderly Valori with crystalline joints, paused mid-lecture. His gemstone eyes flicked toward her. "Ah. Miss Hale. Humans require unique considerations. Please ensure your desk restraints are active." A faint ripple of laughter moved across the room. Lyra tightened the strap on her desk without responding. The restraint wasn't for her benefit, it existed to reassure everyone else that she wouldn't suddenly leap across the room. The instructor resumed the lesson, and Lyra pretended to take notes while trying to ignore the uneasy glances thrown her way. When class ended, she lingered until most students had left. She preferred empty hallways. They made her feel less like a threat. But today, something felt off. As she stepped out, the hairs on her arms prickled, a quiet instinct she trusted more than any alarm. She scanned the corridor. Students were leaving in groups, drifting toward the transport tubes, but three figures near the far intersection didn't move with the flow. They stayed still, watching her. She recognized them instantly. Zervok, tall, armored, compound eyes glinting like chips of black glass. Vorkesh warrior caste. Everyone knew he dominated his year through intimidation. Beside him stood Dravek, a bulky four-armed brute whose mandibles clicked when he laughed. And coiled around the support column was Frillet, a serpentine telepath whose scales pulsed with faint green light. A bad trio. A patient trio. The moment Lyra looked at them, their posture shifted, subtle enough not to draw cameras, obvious enough that she understood their intention. They'd been waiting for her. Lyra adjusted her pack strap and turned down the opposite hallway, choosing a quieter route. Her pulse stayed calm. She didn't run. Running would only encourage them. The corridors grew emptier the deeper she went. Classes had ended. Security drones drifted along their programmed routes. Light panels dimmed as the station's artificial night cycle approached. Her footsteps echoed. So did someone else's. A faint scuttling rhythm. Then a heavier tread. Then a slow sliding sound she knew belonged to Frillet's tail. Lyra didn't need to look to confirm they were following. She had felt bullies trailing her before, on Earth, before she'd left everything behind. But this was different. These aliens didn't want to scare her. They wanted a point proved. She reached a branching corridor. Two turnings led toward busy plazas. One led into a narrow service hall used mostly by custodial drones. She glanced at the open passageway, sensing movement behind her. If she kept going forward, they would follow her into the crowd. She didn't want a scene. And if they were planning something, they wouldn't try it in front of witnesses. She stepped into the service hallway. As soon as the echo of her steps faded, another sound cut through, a soft static crackle. The surveillance orb behind her flickered once, then its light dimmed to black. A controlled blackout. Frillet's work, no doubt. Lyra continued walking until she entered a long corridor lined with storage alcoves. Only half the lights worked. A faint hum vibrated through the floor as power conduits below shifted output, but otherwise the hall was silent. She stopped. A moment later, the bullies appeared behind her, blocking the exit. Zervok clicked his mandibles in amusement. "Running won't help you, human." "I didn't run," she replied calmly. "I took a quieter route." Dravek laughed, a guttural rumble. "Hear that? She thinks she's calm." Frillet slithered forward, green light flowing under his scales. "Your fear smells sharp, little Deathworlder. You hide it well, but it's there. I'm not afraid of you." Lyra met his gaze, her voice steady. "I just don't want trouble." "You are trouble," Zervok hissed. He stepped closer, his armored limbs clacking against the floor. "And today, everyone will see what happens when a human finally gets put in its place." Lyra's jaw tightened. She had known this day would come, the moment a bully decided they could win clout by humiliating a human on camera. They wanted a recording spread across the academy. A trophy. Her backpack strap strained under her tightening grip. "Walk away," she said quietly. "I don't want to hurt you." Dravek sneered. "Listen to her. She actually thinks she's dangerous." Frillet's eyes brightened as he activated the small recording node embedded in his wrist. "This will be entertaining." Zervok spread his arms. "We're not here to kill you. Just a little message for the school. Kneel, human. Say you're not a threat." Lyra didn't move. Zervok clicked sharply. "I said kneel." "No," she said. "Last warning. Don't do this." Dravek stepped forward with a grin. "What's she gonna do? Cry?" Lyra inhaled once, slow and measured. She watched their stances, their balance, the positioning of their limbs. 10 meters of corridor. 3 bullies. No cameras. No witnesses. She could try to run. But they would chase her, and someone else would suffer next time. She could submit. That would haunt her forever. So she stood still. The faint hum of the lights vibrated through the silence. Zervok lifted a claw. "Grab her." Lyra lifted her chin, eyes calm. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. 10 seconds. Zervok paused. "What?" "You have 10 seconds to reconsider," she said. "After that, I won't be able to hold back." Dravek cackled. "She's delusional." Frillet hissed, his scales tightening. "Enough talking. Let's begin." They advanced. Lyra exhaled once, slow and steady, the last breath before instinct took control. And the countdown began. The first second stretched thin as filament. Zervok lunged with a sweeping strike meant to pin Lyra against the wall. His chitinous forearm sliced through the dim corridor lights, heavy enough to break bone. But to Lyra, the movement looked sluggish, telegraphed, almost hesitant. Her stabilizer implant, normally regulating her reflexes to appear non-threatening, flickered with a brief internal spark. A warm tremor pulsed up her spine. And then the world sharpened. Lyra shifted a single step to the right. The bully's eyes flicked toward where she had been standing, but she was no longer there. The corridor air rippled faintly as Zervok's strike hit nothing but emptiness. He froze. "Where?" Lyra didn't wait. She slid past him in a blur and reappeared behind Dravek before Zervok's words finished echoing. Second 2. Dravek's forearms rose, ready to grapple. His heavy frame twisted with surprising speed for his size, but he relied on brute force, not precision. Lyra placed her fingertips at the nerve junction beneath his lowest shoulder. A small jolt of pressure, controlled, exact, shut down the limb instantly. Dravek's legs buckled, confusion seizing him as one arm fell limp. What did she?" he sputtered. Lyra touched a second nerve cluster along his spine. Dravek collapsed like a dropped crate. Second 3. Frillet recoiled, hissing. His scales pulsed with frantic green flares as he pushed his telepathic focus at her like a spear. A cold sensation brushed Lyra's thoughts, a whisper of probing, an attempt to force fear into her mind. But his mental touch skidded off the iron walls of her Deathworld-trained psyche. Humans evolved to survive predators. Minds built for constant danger didn't accept intruders easily. Frillet gasped as psychic feedback slammed into him. He staggered, clutching his head. "It's impossible, your mind." Lyra didn't respond. She didn't need to. The look in his eyes showed enough. Second 4. Zervok roared and charged again, mandibles flared wide. He aimed a downward strike, putting the full weight of his armored limb behind it. Lyra bent at the waist, letting the blow pass over her shoulder, then pivoted around him. The tips of her fingers brushed a joint in his upper exoskeleton, a simple pressure point that disrupted motor control. To him, it must have felt like a momentary numbness. To her, it was the safest way to disable him without causing lasting harm. Second 5. Zervok stumbled, his right arm losing strength. His compound eyes darted wildly. She's behind us, again, how?" Frillet clutched his temples, panting, tail coiling in panic. "I can't see her. I can't sense her. She's everywhere, Lyra wasn't everywhere. She was simply moving faster than their senses could track. Second 6. Zervok tried another attack, but his destabilized limb hindered him. Lyra stepped inside his reach, angled her palm, and pressed against a nerve ridge between his second and third ribs. His legs seized. He crumpled to one knee. Dravek attempted to rise, but his disabled limbs refused to cooperate. His breath came in ragged bursts. "Not fair." Lyra's eyes softened. "You shouldn't have cornered me." Second 7. The corridor dimmed further as the lone working light flickered. Shadows danced across the walls. Frillet twisted to flee, but his tail tangled beneath him. He slithered only a few meters before collapsing against a storage alcove, trembling violently. "Make it stop," he whimpered, his telepathic field collapsing into shivers of static. "Make it stop, please." Lyra didn't approach him. His mind was already overwhelmed. One more push might cause real harm, and she refused to cross that line. Second 8. Zervok forced himself upright with a snarl. "I won't yield to a human." Lyra met his glare, calm, steady, without a hint of triumph. "I didn't want this." "You'll regret holding back," he spat. Lyra exhaled. "No. You will." She stepped forward, her hand a blur, and touched the final point along his carotid ridge. His entire body locked for a heartbeat, then slumped. He hit the ground with a heavy thud. Second 9. Dravek lay unconscious. Frillet shook in a trembling coil. Zervok sprawled motionless, his limbs twitching involuntarily. Lyra stood alone in the center of the corridor, breathing slow and controlled. She checked each of them with a quick, practiced glance. All incapacitated, none fatally harmed. Their vitals were steady. Her pressure techniques were precise, enough to disable, never enough to injure permanently. The 10-second mark hit as softly as a falling grain of dust. Second 10. The silence that followed weighed heavier than the fight itself. Lyra straightened her shoulders, the stabilizer implant humming back to life as if embarrassed by its lapse. Her reflexes softened to normal human levels. Her vision returned from hyper-focused clarity to the standard corridor glow. And her heartbeat, steady from start to finish, remained unchanged. A tiny surveillance orb drifted into view at the far end of the corridor. It flickered, attempting to reconnect after Frillet's earlier hack. Its lenses adjusted, locking onto the scene before it. 3 of the Academy's toughest students unconscious. Lyra Hale standing untouched among them. The orb hesitated. Its processors whirred quietly as if unsure how to interpret the tableau. Lyra raised her hands slowly to show she wasn't threatening it. They attacked first. The orb beeped. It recorded nothing of the fight. Frillet's hack erased the footage entirely. All it saw was the aftermath. Moments later, footsteps echoed from the entrance. A group of students rounded the corner, their chatter fading instantly when they saw the scene. Shock rippled across their expressions. A feathered Avari whispered, "Stars help us, she really is a Deathworlder." A reptilian student murmured, "They're not moving." Did she kill them?" Lyra's jaw tightened. "They're alive." A second surveillance orb arrived. Then another. Within seconds, a cluster of drones hovered around her, scanning the bodies, documenting the damage, or lack of it. No broken bones. No crushed limbs. No injuries beyond temporary nerve disruption. But to the onlookers, that precision almost seemed worse. Lyra stepped back as security officers rushed in. They circled the bullies, checking their breathing. Dravet groaned. Zervok's mandibles twitched. Frillet whimpered faintly. They were waking up, slowly. One officer, a tall Avraxian with crystalline armor plates, faced Lyra. "Remain where you are." "I didn't start it," she said quietly. "We will determine that." His tone stayed neutral, but his eyes betrayed unease. More students gathered, rumors multiplying faster than facts. Someone whispered, "She disappeared. I swear I blinked and she was gone." Another claimed, "Zervok swung at her, and she phased through the wall." A third insisted, "She moved like she was teleporting." None of them were true. But they made a better story. Lyra pressed her palms together, grounding herself. She had hoped to stay unnoticed, just another student struggling with assignments and cafeteria food. But the galaxy had a way of pushing humans into the spotlight, even when they wanted nothing more than peace. A drone projected a message in blue light across the corridor. "Lyra Hale, report to Administrative Tribunal immediately." She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the weight of those words settle. 10 seconds had changed everything. The tribunal chamber felt colder than any corridor Lyra had walked through. Its circular walls rose like a metallic canyon, polished so smooth they reflected her outline back at her in warped fragments. The ceiling pulsed with soft golden light, shifting in slow waves meant to calm nervous students brought here for disciplinary hearings. It didn't work. 3 elevated seats formed a crescent above her, each occupied by a senior instructor whose authority resonated through the room's quiet. The central chair belonged to Dean Arvex, an austere figure with opal blue eyes and translucent skin that glowed faintly from the biolights beneath. Beside him sat Professor Jira of the Ethics Department, and on the far right, the towering Thalven combat instructor, whose exoskeletal frame filled his seat like a living fortress. Lyra stood alone on the circular floor platform. She kept her hands loosely clasped behind her back, shoulders straight but not rigid. A pair of security officers flanked the entrance behind her. Their posture made it obvious, no one trusted her presence here. Dean Arvex cleared his throat, the sound a soft chime. "Lyra Hale," he said, tone measured. "We have convened this tribunal to review the incident in Corridor 7B. Are you prepared to provide testimony?" "Yes," Lyra replied. Professor Jira leaned forward, her thin whiskers trembling with curiosity. "Our initial reports state you incapacitated 3 students in under 10 seconds. Do you deny this?" "No." A tiny murmur rippled through the observers seated at the chamber's perimeter, teaching aides, medical officers, and administrators. Many of them avoided her gaze. Thalven grunted, the plates of his armor shifting. "Explain how you, a 16-year-old human, neutralized a Vorkesh warrior, a 4-limbed Bracker brute, and a serpentine psychic without sustaining injury." Lyra kept her tone steady. "I used minimal force. They attacked first." Dean Arvex tapped his console, bringing up a holographic display. It showed only still images, the moment after the fight. 3 bodies on the floor. Lyra standing untouched. "Unfortunately," he said, "there is no video." The surveillance feed glitched. We cannot verify your claim. Frillet hacked it, Lyra said. He cut the feed before approaching me. Jira's eyes narrowed. Do you have proof of that assertion? No. Just the timing of the blackout. Thalvan's mandibles clicked. Regardless, the force you used appears significant. Beyond what your age and training should permit. Lyra inhaled slowly. I didn't want to hurt them. I chose pressure points that disable movement but don't cause lasting damage. Demonstrate, Thalvan demanded. Dean Arvex shot him a sharp look. Instructor. Restraint. Thalvan huffed but leaned back. Jira interlaced her long fingers. Miss Hale, you appear calm. Too calm. Students who act in self-defense usually show signs of distress, heightened pulse, agitation, fear. I learned to stay composed, Lyra said quietly. Humans don't survive panic. The simplicity of her answer stirred discomfort across the tribunal. Arvex adjusted the hologram again. There is also the matter of perception. Witnesses claim you disappeared. Lyra blinked. Disappeared? Yes. Moved faster than they could see. That wasn't intentional. How do you explain it? Jira asked, tilting her head. My stabilizer implant glitched. It regulates motor activity to prevent misinterpretation. She searched for the right phrasing. Without it, my reflexes spike. Arvex raised an eyebrow ridge. Your implant malfunctioned at the exact moment the surveillance feed dropped? Yes. Convenient, their expressions implied. Not convenient for her. The chamber doors hissed open before the tribunal could respond. Every official turned as medical staff escorted Zervok inside. The Vorkesh warrior walked stiffly, each step uneven, though his vital signals displayed stable recovery. His compound eyes settled on Lyra, then flinched away. The dean sighed. Zervok. You insisted on providing your statement now? Zervok faced the tribunal with visible effort. Yes. Proceed, Arvex said. Zervok swallowed, mandibles twitching in agitation. We cornered her. I admit that. He kept his gaze down. We wanted to film her losing. We thought she would panic. His breath hitched. We were wrong. Thalvan leaned forward. Describe what happened. Zervok's voice dropped to a rasp. She moved. Too fast. One moment she was in front of me, and the next, she wasn't. Teleportation? Jira asked. No. Velocity. I couldn't track her. My eyes couldn't, he trembled. It was like she slipped between frames of reality. Lyra winced inwardly at the dramatic phrasing, but she held her tongue. She didn't strike to injure, Zervok continued. She used precision. Control. She could have broken bones. She didn't. He hesitated, lowering his voice further. I have been in competitive combat for 3 cycles. I have never felt that helpless. The admission hung heavy in the chamber. Frillet, who had been in medical recovery nearby, was wheeled in next. His scales were still dim, his telepathic field faint. He avoided eye contact with everyone. Arvex addressed him gently. Do you wish to speak? Frillet nodded weakly. Her mind, he shuddered. I tried to read her fear. There wasn't any. His voice faded. The moment I touched her thoughts, it felt like falling into a cavern full of predators. It overwhelmed me. A cold silence followed. Thalvan exhaled sharply. Humans always were underestimated. Jira shot him a warning glance. Arvex folded his hands. Miss Hale, your responses were non-lethal, controlled, and consistent with self-defense. The lack of surveillance complicates matters, but witness accounts confirm your restraint. Lyra's shoulders relaxed slightly. However, Arvex continued, your abilities require monitoring. Not as punishment, but to ensure safety, yours and others. You will be placed under adaptive behavioral observation for the next 30 cycles. Any further incidents will be reviewed immediately. Lyra nodded. Yes, Dean. You may return to your quarters, he said. This session is adjourned. The chamber lights dimmed as Lyra stepped out. The corridor beyond felt warmer, though the weight of stairs still clung to her. Whispers followed again, but this time with a different tone, hushed awe instead of suspicion. She walked toward the residential wing, the hum of the station surrounding her. A faint ache spread through her limbs, the after effect of operating beyond her stabilized limits. She pressed a palm to her temple. She would need to recalibrate the implant later. Halfway down the hall, someone stepped into her path. Lyra halted. The figure was tall, furred, with curved tusks and amber eyes that held an eerie calm. A student she had never seen before, but one whose presence felt strangely familiar in its weight. I watched the tribunal, the stranger said. His voice was low, steady. You handled yourself well. Lyra eyed him cautiously. Do I know you? No. But you will. He folded his arms. There are others like you here. Not human, but from similar worlds. Harsh worlds. Deadly ones. Worlds the galaxy fears. I'm not trying to make anyone afraid. He studied her for a long moment. Fear isn't something you choose to inspire. It happens because of what you are. His tusks glinted. The galaxy forgot what humans can be. You reminded them. Lyra's throat tightened. I didn't want to. Intent doesn't change impact. He stepped aside, letting her pass. Keep your balance, Lyra Hale. Eyes are on you. Not all friendly. She walked past him, pulse steady but thoughts racing. 10 seconds had changed her reputation. The galaxy would change next. Lyra woke before the station's morning cycle began. The faint hum of Kavara's 4's artificial gravity pulsed beneath her feet as she stepped onto the chilled floor of her dormitory. She blinked away the remnants of uneasy dreams, corridors twisting into mazes, whispers echoing behind her, glimpses of Zervok's terrified stare, and steadied her breath. She needed clarity today. The tribunal was over, but the impact was only beginning. Her dorm screen lit up automatically, projecting a notification. Observation protocol active, report to Cognitive Assessment Hall at first cycle. So they meant it. Monitoring began immediately. Lyra tied her hair back, pulled on the Academy's gray uniform, and stepped into the hallway. The station simulated dawn with soft golden lights along the ceiling, but the atmosphere felt anything but peaceful. Groups of students parted as she approached, not with anger, but with a tense curiosity that clung to every stare. Some whispered as she passed. She moved faster than sound. No, she phased. My cousin swears humans can shift through walls. I heard she's class 12. Even the council avoids them. Lyra kept walking. Reacting to rumors only made them grow. At the end of the hall, she spotted the furred student from the day before, the one with the amber eyes who'd spoken to her outside the tribunal. He leaned against a wall, arms folded, watching her approach. He straightened. You're on your way to assessment? Yes, Lyra replied. They'll test your reaction patterns, he said. Stress limits. Instinct overrides. They want to know how dangerous you are. Lyra paused. And you are concerned? No, he said simply. Prepared. She waited. He didn't elaborate. Instead, he gestured toward the far corridor. Walk with me. Lyra considered refusing, but something about his composure, steady, unafraid, made her curious. She nodded and matched his pace. Who are you? She asked. Ralek, he said. From Caver Prime. Deathworld Class 9. Lyra blinked. She had read about Kavorians, a species forged by volcanic storms, armored predators, and razor-winged avians. They were resilient, but not as rare as humans. Ralek continued, when you handled those three, it caught the attention of those who understand your kind. The Academy hasn't had many humans. Those who came before didn't stay long. Why? Lyra asked. Because this place fears what it cannot categorize. Lyra studied him. Are you saying they fear me? Yes. But not because of what you did. Because your existence challenges the stories they built to make themselves feel safe. He glanced sideways. You didn't attack. You didn't escalate. You only responded. That terrifies them more than aggression ever would. Lyra looked down at her hands. I didn't want to prove anything. Intent has little weight in a galaxy shaped by survival, Raleigh said. They turned down a long corridor lined with reflective panels. Lyra saw her reflection multiply, a small human girl surrounded by towering aliens, and felt the tension simmering under the surface. As they reached the end of the hall, Raleigh stopped. Your testing hall is through there. He nodded toward a circular door pulsing with blue light. Be cautious. They'll push you harder than they push others. Lyra hesitated. Why warn me? Because the galaxy needs to remember the truth, he said softly. You're not a monster. You're a survivor. And survivors challenge systems built on fear. Before she could respond, he turned and walked away. Lyra took a slow breath and entered the hall. The cognitive assessment hall was blindingly white, stretching into a wide dome lit by hundreds of crystalline plates. 3 instructors stood near the center, surrounded by floating consoles and scanning drones. The lead examiner, an Avari with sleek obsidian plumage, greeted her with a polite nod. Lyra Hale. Please stand inside the circle. Lyra stepped into the indicated platform. We will run a series of simulations, the examiner said. These tests analyze your instinctive responses. You must remain composed. I will, Lyra said. Good, the examiner replied. Begin with Scenario 1. The room dissolved into an illusion of a darkened forest, alien trees twisted in bioluminescent spirals, shadows shifting with faint sounds. Lyra stood still as the simulation scanned her vitals. She could feel the pulse of unseen creatures circling her. A hiss cut through the air. Razor-scaled beasts burst from the undergrowth. The simulation had no intention of easing her into the test. Lyra moved, precise, fluid steps, avoiding claws and jaws without striking back. She ducked low beneath a swipe, pivoted behind a tree trunk, and maneuvered so the creatures collided with each other. She redirected one with a push to its shoulder, sending it tumbling into a ravine's edge. Never attacking. Only controlling space. The forest dissolved. The examiners whispered among themselves. Begin Scenario 2. The ground shifted into a collapsing platform over an abyss. Firestorms erupted above her. Metallic debris whirled like shrapnel. Lyra leaped across fragments of flooring, each motion instinctively efficient. She slid beneath an incoming beam, rolled across a falling slab, and managed to reach the stabilizer beacon at the center. Simulation ended. Scenario 3. Lyra found herself surrounded by towering robotic arms, each designed to test precision and reflex. They jabbed, swung, and extended at unpredictable intervals. Lyra dodged, deflected, and redirected their momentum without striking them directly. One arm attempted a joint lock, she slipped free with a twist. Another swung from behind, she ducked and pivoted. The robots retracted. The hall returned to white. The examiners studied their data streams, their feathers twitching. Finally, the lead examiner approached. Your results are extraordinary. Lyra didn't reply. Compliments rarely soften consequences. You demonstrated extreme reflexive capability, he continued. But you avoided every opportunity to harm the simulations. His head tilted. Most students strike back. I'm not here to fight, she said. That may be precisely why you're dangerous, he murmured. Before Lyra could question the remark, the hall doors slid open again. Dean Arvex entered. Miss Hale, he said, walk with me. She followed him through a narrow hallway overlooking the Academy's central core, a vast chamber filled with floating glass bridges, levitating trams, and lights drifting like starlings. Students moved across platforms suspended high above the ground. Arvex clasped his hands behind his back. "You should understand something," he said quietly. "This school was not built for Deathworlders. We integrated alien cultures with the belief that rationality, structure, and stability keep us safe." His tone tightened. "But Deathworld species thrive on unpredictability, adaptability, instinct." Lyra stayed silent. Arvex stopped beside a transparent railing. "You disrupted a balance we have maintained for generations. You did it by simply existing." She looked down at the platforms far below. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing," he said. "But others will." His eyes held a weary warning. "Some will seek to recruit you. Others will fear you. Some will want to test themselves against you." Lyra's heart sank. "I just wanted to study. To stay invisible. Then learn quickly," Arvex said. "Because invisibility is no longer an option." A soft chime echoed behind them. Lyra turned. A figure stepped forward, Ralek again, but this time he wasn't alone. Two other students flanked him, a slender avian with storm-gray feathers and a reptilian with obsidian scales. All three carried the same calm certainty in their eyes. Ralek approached. "It's time." Lyra frowned. "Time for what?" "For you to understand," he said, "that you're not alone. Deathworlders stick together. And the galaxy is shifting faster than the Academy realizes." The avian stepped closer. "You showed them restraint. That earned respect." The reptilian added, "But it also marked you." Ralek met her gaze. "So we're offering something simple, allies." Lyra exhaled slowly. She wasn't sure she wanted allies. But she was certain of one thing. She didn't want to face whatever was coming completely alone. She nodded once. Ralek smiled faintly. "Welcome, Lyra. The galaxy has feared humans for millennia. Now they're remembering why." And as the station lights brightened into full morning, Lyra realized this wasn't the end of an incident. It was the beginning of a shift that would ripple far beyond the halls of VRYLLK Academy.